I'm going to call the meeting to order. Call the meeting to order at 12:01 p.m. Kingston Police Service Board acknowledges that it is on the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat peoples, and thanks them for their stewardship of the land. And it is in that spirit of stewardship that we are committed to providing for the safety and security of all of its citizens. I see there's nothing for a presentation or briefing. Are there any disclosures of interest or conflict of interest? Sorry. Okay, seeing none. Can I have approval of the agenda, please, as amended? Mover and seconder, Christian, Michael, all those in favor? Okay, that passes. Can I have adoption of the minutes from the February 26th, 2026 meeting? That the minutes of the meeting number 26-02 held on February 26th, 2026 be adopted. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Jimmy, seconded by Adam. All those in favor? And that passes. Moving on to communications. Okay, that the communications from the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards, Senior Officers Association, and the Ministry of the Solicitor General be received by the board. We have an email from Diane Smithson, Secretary for the OAPSB, an email from Inspector Lillian Murdoch from the Senior Officers Association, Ministry of the Solicitor General, Public Safety Division, and the Ontario Association of Police Service Board calls for resolutions and nominations. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Christian, seconded by Jimmy. Are there any questions from board members with regards to any of these communications? Christian, please.
Whether we have a member who's going to be attending the Zone 2 meeting. Lori will be.
Laurie?
Maybe for discussion afterwards, that if there's opportunity for one of the other members of the board to attend.
Thank you very much, Christian. Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? And that passes. Thank you. There are no delegations. We have a consent agenda for information reports. A request pursuant to section 19 of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Would the chief or deputy chief like to speak to this item?
No, not unless there's questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief McIntosh. Are there any questions from the board with regards to this item? Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to call for a motion that the consent agenda item be received. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Adam, seconded by Michael. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Okay, we have some items for approval agenda, recommendation reports added in the addendum. Appointment of Kingston Police Officers, new recruits. That the Kingston Police Service Board appoint contingent upon each candidate obtaining an Ontario Police College Basic Constable Training Certificate on the date of swearing in. Helena Acton, Devin Day, Lucas Daw, and Abigail Geen, pursuant to section 37-1-C of the Community Safety and Policing Act, CSPA. Can I have a mover and seconder for this, please? Moved by Christian, seconded by Jimmy. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Okay, next item. The appointment of Kingston Police Officers, experienced officers. That the Kingston Police Service Board appoint on the date of swearing in Naomi Dubs and Matthew Duquette, pursuant to section 37-1-C of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Can I have a mover and seconder for this, please? Moved by Christian, seconded by Adam. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Okay, moving on. We have the Q4 operating budget update. This item was distributed yesterday with the proposed recommendation that the operating budget status update as of December 31st, 2025, report number 26-24, is for information only, and that the board approve the staff recommendation to request that city council approve the transfer of $400,000 from the 2025 year-end operating surplus to the police capital reserve, with the funds to be utilized in 2026 to support urgent facility repairs, equipment and furniture replacements, and to address current space constraints. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Christian, seconded by Adam. Any discussion or questions with regards to this item? Well, I have a few questions. So first, thank you very much for presenting this item. I just want to touch upon the recommendation of the motion, which is the $400,000 surplus to capital reserve for facilities. Now, do you mind walking the board through the revenue and expenses portion and why it is that there's $400,000 in reserve first, please? Thank you.
Yep. So good afternoon, everyone, Chair Ridge and members of the board. So really extremely happy to report that we did end the year with a surplus of $859,000, or really sitting at 98.41% spent. Our year-end net cost was 53.2 million versus our budget of 54.1. And as Chair Ridge noted, that we are requesting a transfer of 400K from our 2025 surplus to the Police Capital Reserve Fund to be utilized in 2026. And just to note, in keeping with policy, the remainder would be transferred for use in future capital budgets. So for future years, not in 2026, obviously. And again, as noted in the report, the year 2025 was influenced largely by the cyber incident impacting operations really for the first half of the year. So during this time, our operational capacity was really redirected to incident response, service restoration, and stabilization activities. So this really did delay our implementation of some planned initiatives and limited the ability to advance non-critical work as originally scheduled. Some key factors driving the 2025 year-end surplus. So we did have substantially higher than budgeted revenues and recoveries. Actual revenues and recoveries were approximately $7 million versus a budget of 5.7 million. These were largely driven by primarily by provincial grants and other revenue recovery categories. So some of these key drivers include higher than projected court security prisoner transportation funding of approximately 336,000, and this is largely driven on what we are reporting to the provincial government around our expenses, and this really drives what we get in future years for funding. The other thing was that we received a one-time program funding for MCERT enhancement grant, one-time MAG disclosure protocol funding of 213,000, which was really great because it offset some auto transcription software for us and offset some of our staffing costs, which was really great. And then a lot of other CISO funded grants from CISO on other projects. So, and that wasn't primarily offsetting just incremental costs, but also offsetting some of our existing costs. The other thing that should really be noted on the revenue side is that we received additional funding from Corrections Canada around funding for one of our officer positions to around drones. So the UAV, I probably am not going to pronounce this properly, so I could pass it on after, but basically it's additional funding for that. And then we received, in addition to that, some additional funding for a regional intelligence officer. So again, these were over and above what we had budgeted. Just turning over to our expenses, they were slightly above budget overall, sitting about $483,000 over, with notable pressures you're going to see from in the professional services category. This was largely attributed to supporting the cyber incident response and other advisory needs. So our total cyber incident costs that are hitting this operating budget are $1 million. And the reason we were largely able to offset those within the IT budget was that we were able to kind of put a pause on a lot of some of the other existing contracts in IT and a lot of other things that we were doing to try to see what we could do to better to manage this. And so that was one reason that we were able to absorb some of those. And again, largely due to the increased revenues that we got, thankfully. The other thing that we're really saving on are some salary savings across full-time wages primarily and benefits, which is contributing approximately $1.5 million to our bottom line. This is again, or sorry, not again, but largely attributed to vacancies, retirements, turnover, and timing of new hires. And just pivoting back, we did ask as part of the 2025 operating budget to have 13 new positions really to offset our members on long-term leaves. And then because we had, I would largely say because we had the cyber incident, we had to pause some of our services and we weren't able to fill some of these positions as fast as we would have liked. We did end up with a surplus, and we did have some significant turnover and retirement throughout the year. One of the other salary lines that you're going to see that we're under budget on is our overtime, which is a great thing. So we're sitting at a positive $207,000. This is largely attributed to some really great work on, again, the mass gathering side. So you're going to see that we were noted in the report, we are actually about $150,000 less overtime than what we budgeted for the mass gathering. So that's not the total savings of the budget, but that's just in the overtime. And again, that's just related to, again, doing shift changes and just looking at ways that we can do things better, creating efficiencies. There are some unfavorable variances noted in staffing, and I'll just try to keep these high level, but again, we continue to experience increased costs related to WSIB and other leave pressures. And you're going to note in the report that you'll see that we had a $391,000 increase in WSIB costs. And again, that's just increases in numbers of members on WSIB, and part-time wages are higher by 209,000. This is reflective really, again, it kind of goes part and parcel with when you have less full-time, we were using part-time to kind of offset some of that. So for backfill requirements, primarily in reception, the records area, courts with the special constables, and communications and 911 dispatchers. And then I guess we always like to have this in here and we talk about this, but a final thing to note again, just going back to the mass gathering costs. So just wanted to note that in 2025, our total costs ended up being about $309,000 in total for all three, and that was 2 weekends, as compared to $452,000 in 2024, $581 in 2023, and $1.3 million in 2022. So again, significant strides made, and again, thanks to Murray Inspector Hilliker for really driving the on the homecoming events and stuff like that. She really saved a lot, did a really great job this year. So thank you for listening, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Adam?
Through you, Chair. Just one question about the provincial grant revenue surpluses. Are not those monies, if not utilized, earmarked, and can they actually be utilized somewhere else and, given to a reserve fund? Or are they to be returned?
The provincial grants, through Chair, are generally established. The way they can be carried over is if they're in a special purpose account. Very rarely do we see that on our provincial grants, that they're in special purpose, which means we can carry them year to year. So they need to be defined within the fiscal year that they're identified in. There is some capabilities when we see 3-year grants to carry year 1 money into year 2 or year 3 if it's within the envelope. But that's not always the case, and you need special permission. For example, the CSP local grant that we're currently engaged in right now, which is a 26 to 29 grant, 2026 to 2029 grant, they've clearly identified that the funds cannot be carried year over year for the 3-year grant, and they must be spent within the year specifically that they're defined. There is some reallocation allowances within the fiscal year, but they are upon approval as well. So to answer your question, all the grants are kind of set up differently. Most of them are through Treasury Board, which means they stay within the year that they're in. So we would not be permitted to carry them year over year.
sorry again, then how does that affect this $781,000 surplus just on the grant side? Are there monies that would be returned that is going to impact this $400,000 surplus? I just don't want to, I want to make sure we're not spending money that's earmarked for next year and we put in a reserve fund to find out that the grant money has actually been reallocated.
No, the grant funding, if we see a grant funding end, it would be the end of March, and that's been allocated for the quarter specifically. There was one grant that we had to return some funds for. That was the NG 911, and it was a small amount of money, and that's already been allocated into this budget.
Any additional questions with regards to Director Isles' discussion or presentation? Okay. Oh, Chief McIntosh, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on a couple things. First off is when you look at this budget and the fact that we're even in a surplus after having had a cyber event and the work that was put forward, primarily I would suggest by overseen, I should say, by Deputy Gee, and the work that Scarlett's done and the work that our senior managers have done in support of ensuring fiscal responsibility and holding back on operations in order to maintain continuity and get us to where we are today, that we're talking about, we actually only spent 98% versus we spent 105% or something like that, should be commended, and has really set us in a good position to have those reserve funds and use some of that funding to address issues like the building that Scarlett spoke about, that are going to put us in a position where we're actually going to save more money. So by doing some upgrades here, it prevents us from having, for example, to maybe need another location to do work, and can buy us a number of years while the city creates some infrastructure, things that they have in place. And so I just wanted to comment on, I had nothing to do with it, so can take zero credit, except to say that it's really impressive to see what has been done here and where we sit considering what had occurred. And then one other quick comment is the WSIB. I know that's a relevant issue for last year, for this year. These are discussions we're having every day with respect to how we may address that from a mitigation perspective. And I do think that we may have some ideas that can assist in that regard in the coming months. And so once again, always our minds are set on fiscal responsibility as we're talking about the budget in year end, but also supporting our services, supporting our members and their wellness. So great job by them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And so just a follow-up question, Director Isles. And I believe that Chief McIntosh touched upon this briefly. So the $400,000 that will be transferred over into reserves or capital reserves, will that then be a supplement to the budgetary ask that has come to the city and city council with regards to the 2026 budget?
Yes, that is correct. And I did have, I was able to touch base with the city treasurer and the deputy treasurer just to see, actually even see if we were able to do this. And yeah, it was decided that probably if we could half of it. And again, just to Chief McIntosh's point, one of the things that we've been looking at least for like the 2 years since I've been here, is we have a serious space planning issue here. And it was actually going to be driving some significant capital budget requests in our that were actually budgeted pretty early on in the city's building capital. And we're thinking that by utilizing this $400,000, we're going to be able to make better use of the space, use furniture to make more seats and stuff, to clean up a bunch of areas and just free up a ton of space to buy us at least another 10 years before we have to build another facility to accommodate. So really, to Chief McIntosh's point, it will save in the broader picture for a while, for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Christian, please.
I just want to thank you for the transparency, predictability, and stability that you have brought to the financing and budget in this organization since your arrival. It wasn't always like this, and it's often many boards struggle to understand the finances of their organization, especially in policing. And I appreciate the cooperation we've had with you and with management on making sure that as a public service, we are a transparent, accountable organization that is marked by probity. And now I think, Chair, if I understand, we might still have some ways to go on how we do budgets and how we do budgeting. But I think we couldn't get there from here until we got to the point that we are at now. And so I just want to thank you for that. I think it's difficult to underestimate how much work that's been.
Thank you, Christian. And I just want to echo that point or as well. When I first became involved on city council with regards to the city budget, there has been a substantial amount of good work that's been done in terms of moving this organization in the right direction. So I'm very appreciative of that. So thank you. If there are no further comments, we're going to move. Oh, Councillor Son, sorry, I missed you.
It's not a question, it's the comments again. I want to appreciate the Deputy Gee and the former Chief, Mr. Fraser, and Scarlett to saving the money from the mass gathering. Being on the board from last 5-6 years, I see the significant improvement on the mass gathering, especially at the Queen's gatherings, and saving the money. It was a great work by all of you and the team as well. Overall, everyone was deployed. I have heard a lot of good comments from the people. It was very helpful, very professional. And that's what the board like to see, because all the force is ambassador, every one of you ambassador for the force and in the face of Kingston. So thank you very much for doing a great job, not only saving money, but providing the good service to the students and the resident. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just a question for the board administrator, just because it's already been a long day, I apologize. We did have a mover and seconder for this? Okay, very good. I'm going to call the vote then. All in favor? Okay, and that carries. Moving on to motions, vacancies to committees deferred from February 26th. I am requesting that one member put themselves forward to be appointed to the collective bargaining committee. Do we have any interest? I will sit here and stare awkwardly at board members. Christian?
Why don't we have an internal conversation about
Okay,
that?
sounds good. Thank you. Board Administrator Sargent, do we need to defer again? A motion to defer? Okay, I'm going to call for a motion to defer the one member appointment for the collective bargaining committee. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Vice Chair Coven, seconded by Michael. All those in favor? That passes. Thank you. Item B, Upper Canada lease agreement as added by the addendum. That the Kingston Police Service Board authorize the chair to enter into and execute a 5-year lease agreement with Upper Canada Office Systems at a cost of $1,787.67 per month. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Christian, seconded by Jimmy. Is there any discussion with regards to this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That passes. No unfinished business. We have discussion, new business. I just want to update the board on some of the great work that's being done by the policy committee. So myself and the previous chair and now Councillor Stephen have been working on updating all of the policies with regards to the Kingston Police Services Board. This has been a significant task, and we've been very grateful to have assistance from 2 Masters of Public Administration students from Queen's, from the School of Policy Studies, Ali and Anyango, who have done a lot of great work and research in helping to prepare these policies. Board Administrator Sargent, how many policies were there to update and replace?
It's approximately 105 policies.
Okay, and how many have been completed and voted through at the board level?
We've completed about 25 that have been adopted by the board, and we have about 30 more going through the review process
Okay.
in the next couple of months.
So there's been some significant work on this that's been done by the committee members and also by Ali and Anyango, who are assisting. And so I just wanted to recognize that hard work. And I'm sure that there'll be future discussions about this. As I've mentioned before, I know that policy is exciting for myself, but not necessarily for everybody else. That's totally fair, but it is very important in terms of what we're doing as an organization and direction that we're providing. So I just wanted to make that note, and we will move on. Okay. So, okay, moving on. So a motion to move in camera in accordance with section 44 and section 44-2-A, B, D, E, and K of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Adam, seconded by Jimmy. Okay, and that the board move into an in-camera session after a, let's say, 10-minute break. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. So the regular public meeting is ended at 12:26. I will see those for in-camera session in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.